So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. It says on your Wikipedia, I know it's a font of all knowledge and accurate.
You can believe, yeah. Well, I like Wikipedia. Actually, I think it's a brilliant thing.
I'd be fucked without it.
Well, yeah, we all will. It serves as a memory.
Yeah, it does. It does. Memory. Yeah. It says, and I love this list of stuff. It says singer, musician, artist, photographer, graphic designer, writer, teacher, and lecturer. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. I mean, you could say that. Not all worlds, of course, but
No. What? So I suppose that I don't do these in chronological order. So I like to dodge about.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you straight out, of those things, which is your kind of favorite kind of way of being? I mean, would you, if you could only devote your life to one of those things for the rest of your life, which is a bit like desert island career.
Yeah. Well, it would be art, painting, visual stuff.
Right.
Because that's where I started. And it's something I've been doing ever since I can remember, since I was a little kid, So,
have you sold a lot?
No, I haven't bothered to exhibit most of it because our lives got taken over by music,
Right.
So we changed direction, and when I began, it was just something I knew I could do from being a child, when I began doing visual stuff. And then the music came later, and that was to do with adolescence and, seeing rock bands and seeing the Beatles and seeing the Rolling Stones and all that kind of thing happen and hearing the blues,
Yeah.
And then I just veered off into another path, and I thought I'll do this for a year or two,
Yeah, usual.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Well,
But so you never had an exhibition of art ever?
Well, I've had a couple of exhibitions, but just small things, a couple in London, and then I did a lot of graphic art, book covers, and that kind of thing, over the years. When I gave up music for a bit,
Yeah.
I stopped rocking and started doing art, for a bit.
I like. I mean, if you ever fancied doing an exhibition, I could help you manifest it in immersive sound, because that's what one of my companies does. We worked in every major museum in London and art gallery in the Tate and everything. If you ever wanted to put on a kind of lifetime retrospective of your work with sound, I'd be really interested in helping you with that.
Oh, well, that's very generous of you. Yeah, well, I'll take you up on that.
I'm sure there'd be people who'd be interested in it. And even if it was, say, for instance, in a commercial gallery, you might get a few bob out of it, Can't knock that.
Why not? Yeah.
In today's world. So that's very interesting that you say the visual art thing, because I've always thought of you as an artist in the broadest sense of the word. You were obviously a much more nuanced and complex character than, a few pop songs could really explain. Actually, I've got something to show you, make you laugh. I was listening to some of your earlier stuff on Enigmatic. Let me just hold on a second. I just need to tell you what the title of the track was. Enigmatic. Wrong keyboard. Hold on. Enigmatic. Got it. And he's a liquid, right? So, which I love, by the way. In fact, I love all that album. I think it's great, and it was re-released not so long ago, wasn't it? And did that do well?
Yeah. It's one of those records that made more impact after it was released. You know what I mean?
Long tail, they call it in marketing. Yeah,
exactly. That's it. Yeah. So I'm the guy with the long tail.
Stop bragging. And oh dear. But the thing is, what was interesting to me when I went back to listen to the album when I was doing research for this is how well, as I know, obviously, a certain amount of the sounds and the arrangements are dated, and same with me and all the stuff we did. But the songs themselves are still valid. You know, they still work for me. They're not dated at all. It's not like you chose some shit subjects and like you're going, oh God, what was I thinking? And it reminded me of a project I did recently with the National Portrait Gallery, where I was asked to create a happening, basically, in a load of rooms in the Portrait Gallery as an after-hours event. And we had 7,000 people turn up. We had DJs playing weird kind of surrealist stuff. We had different 3D soundscapes in different rooms with artists creating soundscapes inspired by different portraits.
Wow.
I had a giant projection on the wall of John Shuttleworth reading this, right? And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's an amazing piece of work. And actually, Picasso took 2 years off from painting completely, become a poet and a playwright.
Wow.
And it's not really I mean, you know about it because you're interested in art and you're a very knowledgeable person. But the average Joe wouldn't know this. So I got John Shuttleworth to read excerpts from it in black.
Oh, Shuttleworth's a hero of mine anyway. I think.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
I interviewed him on the podcast, and he's such an interesting guy. He's nice. Anyway, so what I was going to ask you, because it's funny, I think it's funny anyway, is to pick a page between 13 and 60. Pick a number between 13 and 60. 10. No, 10's not between 13 and 60.
Oh, sorry. 15. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, here we go. I'm just going to read a short excerpt because it reminds me a little bit of the kind of surrealism of He's a Liquid. So it's a little bit off piste, but I just thought it was quite interesting. Don't hide yourself so cleverly behind the behind of the story, which is of such great interest. And can you imagine John Shuttleworth reading this?
I can.
What try and do it? Don't hide yourself. He's not so cleverly behind the behind of the story. Ooh. He was doing it like. And as for us, we'll be quite happy to cut our pattern by the shadow cast by the bills owing to the landlord. And anyway, the lyric writing reminded me of that. I thought it was a funny moment.
Well, oddly enough, it all comes out of, well, not all of it, but the idea came out as surrealism, which Picasso was attached to loosely, anyway.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about putting sentences together was to try make the most likely combinations that somehow feel like they mean something, but you're not quite sure what they are.
But it doesn't matter, does it? Because you let listener decide what they mean.
Exactly. That's what that's how you hand it over to the listener, isn't it? By making these things that are open-ended enough for the listener to find themselves into.
Well put. I can tell you're an educator. Tell me about your education work now, because I know you work at which university are you at? Leeds, is it?
I taught at Leeds for a bit, Leeds Art School, and then I taught at Art College, and then I taught at Ealing.
Oh, right.
As well. I did some lectures at Ealing for a few years, actually.
And what was the subject?
It was it was technology and art, how they affect each other, really. Essentially, that's what I did. And I did some things on the music course as well, because I got a very good recording music set up there.
Do you still do any education?
Just occasionally, when people want me to do a lecture or something, I'll go and do one.
Would you do a lecture for me as a guest lecturer? Because I now teach an MA course Right, I do a module called Making Music Work, which is about all the touch points of how you can make money out of the music industry now, because it's proliferated, right? Yeah. If you think you're going to be a star and you think that's going to be your main income, you're probably going to be disappointed. So that's the premise of it. But I like to get interesting artists and people from different areas. So if you're interested, I'll talk to you later about it. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm interested in doing
It's
that.
all on Zoom now at the moment, anyway. So
I'll lecture anybody about anything.
yeah, good lad. That's what we like to hear. Northern attitude. That's what it is. It is. So going back to growing up, I didn't realise this till I looked. You were born in Chorley, coming in your ears.
That's right.
Chorley up there, and Chorley. Good God! If anybody asked a trivia question, what did you and the comedian have in common? That'd be quite interesting.
Phil Cool, yeah.
Yeah. So your dad was a coal miner and a boxer. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. He was an amateur boxer.
Right.
His proper job was a coal miner, but he boxed. The litany we always got was 110 fights, lost one, drew one.
Is that right? That's quite impressive.
And he was good. He was a good boxer, and he had to give it up because he had an accident on his motorbike,
Right.
And he cracked his skull. So he boxing board took his license away. And that was
So it was all amateur, was it?
It was amateur boxing, yeah. But it was a busy scene, because boxing was rock and roll then. That's how you got out of your working class environment.
Yeah.
And he was very ambitious, and he's very good. He was a good boxer.
So
It was very funny because he used to, for his holidays, he used to go on the fairgrounds fighting all comers.
Oh, right.
And I said, what if a big guy comes, And he said, oh, they're no trouble.
Yeah, he must have made a few bob out of that then, obviously.
Yeah, he did all right. He was okay. I mean, boxers were always the flash guys, they always had the double-breasted striped suits and all. They always well-dressed, sort of popular guys, He was like that.
It's like the the Billy Bigelow character in Carousel.
Yes.
That charming,
sort of locally well-known
edgy local guy.
Yes, that's right.
Town.
Exactly.
Getting the girls round the back and then on to the next town. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not implying that your dad is a womanizer. I'm just
Of course not.
no. Oh no, far be it from me. And your mum was a mill worker. Where did she? Where she work?
Yeah, she worked in all the mills around Chorley, cotton mills, dyeing plants, heapy bleach works. All those coaling brow, spinners. There were dozens of mills in Chorley then, and my mum said it was great because if you got bored somewhere, you just gave your notice in and then walked up the road and got another job straight away.
Right.
That was what the world was like in those days. It must have been the same in Sheffield.
It's the same in Sheffield. I mean, I remember people saying that when the steel mills and everything shut down in Sheffield in the mid-70s, that what a disaster it was, and all these jobs were lost, and employment was the biggest fear for people at that time, because But thinking about it now, at least they had a safety net.
Yes.
Now,
Well,
they're really desperately in trouble, and I think, and there was more or less full employment all the time.
Yes. And you got a decent wage. You could buy a house.
Yeah.
And you could afford to mortgage and all that. I mean, now it's they're all the jobs are Mac jobs, and the difference between buying a house and staying alive is huge, and most people are relegated to the staying alive stage. I think it's disgraceful.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's probably not a very well hidden secret that I'm a massive socialist, but I would do. I come from Sheffield, but it's a difficult time at the moment because we don't seem to have an opposition. So I just like to say that. But the interesting point was, looking back at the 70s, was to not have a full-time job was a disgrace for a working-class family. I mean, you go, and the idea of having a part-time job or a 0 hours contract, well, you'd be regarded as flighty.
Yes.
You'd be regarded as part of the underclass.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
And so now the corollary of that thought is we now have a massive underclass, and they're basically trying to chuck them out of the benefits system. so the less cost. This is the Tory way of looking at things.
But
Once they've run out of growth, all they can do is cut costs.
Well, it's also got to the point where the country's going back to feudalism, where all the peasants are camped out around the castle, and that's what's happening. There are two classes, people who have money and people who don't, and we've been polarized as a nation, and it's very unhealthy, because it means that people with potential who are born at the bottom of the ladder can't climb it.
Yeah, social mobility has been hobbled. That's the
it's a very dangerous situation, I think, because if you're just simply practical about it, it means that there's a lot of resentment building, and that's what Brexit was about. Brexit was all the hidden resentments that everybody had manifested in that foolish thing that Cameron did. Excuse me, I'm going off on one.
Oh no, it's good, man. I love it. This is right up my street. I don't give a fuck what the what the listeners. I do actually, but you need to hear the reality, and this is reality.
It just focused all those resentments. It gave an opportunity for all those resentments to have some play, and there are a lot more in store. I think that's the danger. It's a dangerous situation.
Very good.
It's undesirable. It's dangerous, and it's inhuman as well.
Yeah. I've got a 25-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son, who are seriously looking about. I mean, my daughter's in Spain at the moment. My son's in Dublin, both studying.
Yeah,
they're seriously considering not coming back.
Yeah, that's a common story, Martyn. I've heard the same from many people.
What's the incentive?
Yeah,
and I'm currently selling my house in a lovely area of London in Primrose Hill, downsizing, like money in the bank, and we're going. Why would we want to buy somewhere else? I think we're probably just going to rent somewhere, but I'm going to buy somewhere. I used to live in Venice for 27 years.
I know, I remember.
Yeah, and I'm going to buy a new place. I had to sell it a few years ago. I'm going to buy a new place. And the prices there are so good for the same kind of... it's in Venice, for number one. But, you can get the equivalent of like a £1 million flat in Marylebone. Yeah. Is like £300,000 in Venice. In Venice.
Well, that's the Europe-wide story, isn't it? You can... England is such a strangely convoluted, concentrated marketplace, and it's become that way because there's been an influx of people using London property, particularly as a bank account.
As money laundering. It's the money laundering capital of the world. Yeah. Plus, then you factor into that the endless supply of cheap, if not nearly free labour that's been flooding in, ironically from Europe. So it's a mystery to me why the Confederation of British Industry ever didn't come out against Brexit, because there's suddenly this vast pool of cheap labour has disappeared. Maybe they're thinking they're going to start slave ships again. I don't know. Let's see. Anyway, this is all very contentious stuff. I don't care. What do you? Oh yeah, okay. Let's go there. What do you think about the Meghan and Harry thing? Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm not up to date with it, I have to say, because these things I just let them float by. They're inevitable consequences of two things coming together. One of which is the royal family that needs to control its image, and a woman who I don't know, but she's obviously she understands media.
Yeah, she does.
And the two things coming together are an interesting collision. It's about where Diana left off, I think.
Well, if it brings the royal family down, that would be an absolute result as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not particularly anti-royalist, but I think it's interesting to watch the natural progression of things.
Yeah. Oh, you're so measured. Yeah. I'm. Oh yeah. Anyway, we need to sit in a pub.
We're a lot bolder than I am.
Yeah. I'm a broader brushstroke kind of guy.
You are. Yeah.
You're more of a.
No, that's good. That's a great thing to be. I think.
I nearly stood for Parliament 2 years ago, by the way. I got heavily involved when Corbyn was in, and I had to make a decision about abandoning my music career in the final kind of active years of my life, and I just didn't want. I ended up thinking I can't. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but I can't abandon music.
No, well, it's hard, isn't it? Because it's something that gets into your blood, and once it's in there, it's very difficult to deny it. I think
it's true. It's true.
I can understand how you felt about that.
Yeah, it was a difficult decision. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad I didn't now. Really, seriously. So you were a mod and a hippie, were you?
Yeah.
Good lad. And so you're a sharp dresser.
Well, yeah, it was very interesting and very important, aren't they? When you're we're at the bottom of the heap, it's the only way you've got to show who you are.
And going out at the weekend.
And going out and enattracting girls and saying, and rivalry with other tribes, It was very important.
You didn't get into any fights, I hope.
Oh, yeah, well, it's inevitable, I mean, I was very young, so I must have got battered, And it was, you'd go out with the long hair and all the Teds would be waiting.
Oh, dear.
It was that
what about when you were a mod? Did you have a scooter or anything?
Yeah, I did have a scooter, yeah. I had the mirrors and the scooter and all that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I didn't know for very long because I wasn't a very good driver, I wasn't very safe.
But the girls must have loved it. Oh, I was always jealous about all that stuff.
It's always great gliding up, with the park and all that.
Yeah, all that stuff. Some people still live in that world,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an iconic image, isn't it, that? And I remember how impressed I was when I saw all the mods used to come through Chorley, driving from Twisted Wheel Night, Manchester, Brasenose Street, up to Blackpool. And so on Saturday, Sunday morning, you get this parade of scooters, all done up with the mirrors and the parks and the girls on the back, going up to the all-nighter and the old dare at the Mecca in Blackpool, So there was this constant traffic around there of that wonderful parade of people, and it was really inspirational when you're a bit younger. You look at this and you think, wow, I want some of that.
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough to do an art exhibition with a thing called Art of Manufacturing. That's it. In Blackburn. With Wayne Heavyway, it was his company that put it on. And basically, they put artists together with a factory or a business.
Oh, yeah.
Great piece of work. I don't know if you've ever been involved with it, but they're really good. And they're based near Blackburn. And they said, we'd like you to do this, but, we got a couple of ideas. There's this old Northern Soul club in the centre of Blackburn called the Emperor's Ballroom.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to be a 1930s dance hall. It's got a sprung floor and everything. Yeah. Deco features, deco windows. I mean, beautiful. But it had fallen into disrepair. So it was like, plaster falling off, bits of ceiling missing. And anyway, I said, this is amazingly atmospheric. Can we open it up for this weekend of the event? And I'll take my 3D sound system and we'll create a recreation of the last night of the Northern Soul thing, which is like 20 years earlier. Yeah. We'll recreate it. But what we'll do is we'll have people sat in a circle in the middle of this big thing, big ballroom. We'll have people sat in a circle, a bit like an AA meeting or something. They don't know what's coming, but they're surrounded by sound and immersed in it.
Yeah.
And so we did this, and I created this soundscape, blending kind of impressionistic versions of Northern Soul songs together, and the sounds of manufacturing from the Silent Night factory. So the idea was it was like 5 days of working, and then at the weekend you went out clubbing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
In 15 minutes.
Yeah, great.
But the great thing was, at the end, when we did the kind of impressionistic Northern Soul thing, the surprise was that we actually had some Northern Soul dancers.
Oh, yeah.
Who came and danced around them, and it was really weird. It was like almost like a very kind of White's northern version of some kind of mating ritual that you see on a David Attenborough show in Africa or something. It was so great.
Yeah.
And
anyway, that's look how those things get formalized too, isn't it? With the bag over the shoulder and the baggy jeans and that kind of thing. You know, it's a whole set. It's just like mods, isn't it? You know, where there's an iconic look and set of behaviours that people do.
But there's a growing scene now for the new generation. I mean, these Northern Soul dancers were like 20.
Yeah.
And they got all the moves. They got all the same clothes. It was like travelling back in time. It was amazing.
Yeah, interesting.
Fantastic. Anyway, sort of mention that. Don't know how we got onto Northern Soul, but there you go. Right. So then you had a band called Woolly Fish. Is that right?
Yeah, it's art school.
Yeah. And what was that like?
Oh, it was a series of disasters, really. They're all very funny. I mean, it's like Spinal Tap writ small, you know.
Oh, brilliant. Tell us a funny story then.
Well, the classic one was playing at the top rank in Preston, and we got on stage. We had a curtain in those days, and so we went behind the curtain, set the gear up, and the DJ, we bought him a couple of pints, to give us an introduction. And he's just back from their wildly successful tour of Germany, Preston's #1 psychedelic group, the Woolly Fish. Curtain opens. And it was a revolving stage, pulled all the plugs out. So all you could hear was Baz the drummer belting away. We were so nervous, we ran off, you know.
That is genius. Oh my God.
Classic sort of daft first appeal in some way, you know.
Oh my God, and they fill you up so much. Right, yeah. So let's move on to, I was just asking you about meeting Warren and Billy Currie, and how that went, and how you felt when you first started Tiger Lily.
Oh, yeah, that was the New York Dolls era, wasn't it? When things became good fun again, and we were all fed up with blues bands and scrub denim and long hair, you know, and suddenly there were the Dolls, you know, all complete daftness, madness, fun, glam, but tatty glam, you know, very sort of ragged glam. It was just great. Yeah. And it was a revival of that kind of spirit of complete craziness, and let's go for it, lads, you know, have a good time and outrage everybody, you know.
Yeah. Are there videos of Tiger Lily on YouTube?
No, I don't think we ever got that far. I've got a couple of photographs of a couple of gigs we did, you know, when I was trying to dress like David Sovian. But...
Brilliant. Oh, brilliant. So what was the outfit looking like then? Tell me.
Oh, it was all, very tight satin trousers and a girl's blouse and high heel shoes, you know.
Yes. There you go.
All that stuff, you know. It was complete.
Did you have long hair? Yeah.
Yeah, it was still long hair then, but not.
Did you have a headband and all that stuff?
No, I didn't have the headband. No.
Oh no. So you weren't a kind of hair rock bandy, wasn't that kind of?
Oh yeah, it was sort of glam, the fag end of glam, really.
Right.
And it was just the moment when everybody kicked off again. I think simultaneously right across Britain.
Yeah.
on that evening, the Dolls were shown on Ground Fest. Everybody else went for it as well. We all did it.
I think people underestimate the influence of New York Dolls.
Yeah.
I think they really do. Not just because they all go, oh yeah, there were a lot of rock bands that went, but actually that kind of, it was glamorous scuzziness, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Kind of like dangerous. It genuinely felt like, well, in essence, it's more or less proto-punk, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Oh, it is definitely. I mean, it was also reflecting New York at that time, which was a dangerous city. And but it was mad and interesting at the same time. You know, it was the Velvets, Warhol, all that stuff had come together at that moment. And New York was in ruins. You know, the Bronx was on fire. There were drugs and guns everywhere. It was but at the same time, all the painters were there in lofts doing wonderful work, and everybody was interested. Everybody was interested in making a new life for themselves and didn't fit in anywhere else. Came to New York at that point,
Right.
and it made it.
Yeah. Did you go to New York at that period? When did you?
Yeah, well, just afterwards, just shortly afterwards. Yeah, yeah. Well, it was like the dolls, you know. I mean, they personified it. They really illustrated what was going on there.
Yeah.
There's all sort of confusion and danger and fun and daftness and sheer bravado. You know, you had kind of bravado to get through it all.
And that thing about taking over previously industrial properties, like
exactly
in Tribeca and it was in Tribe, but they're all over the place, and was so glamorous to us in Sheffield. I don't know about you, but I just thought I wanted. That's what we want to be. We're kind of basing our lives on some kind of. It was like Andy Warhol with a northern accent. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, you know, the gardener, because we worked in the garden together.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was started off by Dennis Leigh, who came over from New York, and he saw all these empty buildings in Shoreditch, and he said, "Come on, let's get a building, because they don't cost much."
That's right.
You know, it was like it was 10 grand each or something, you know, and we had a building, so we all chipped in, and that was it. That was a garden studio in Shoreditch. You know?
Let's talk about that, because that's when I first met you, and you were never on Virgin, were you? Were you on Virgin?
I was on Virgin. Yeah,
I was on Virgin. That's right. Yeah. So I got your album. That's right, because I got your albums for free. I remember now, and that was the first.
Likewise.
Sorry.
Likewise, I got yours for free.
And it was suggested when I was doing the British Electric Foundation first Music of Quality Distinction album, which was quite an unusual concept at the time, that we used this your studio. That's where we first met you, and Gareth Jones, who's a legend, obviously.
A legendary Gareth,
yeah. My phone's going. Hold on. And the legendary Gareth, who went on to work with Mute. I'm just going to switch my phone off, actually. Went on to work with Mute, and did a load of albums with. He worked with Erasure a lot and all those people. But the studio was really cool. I mean, it was really well equipped. I remember thinking, a big live area, didn't it? Because we recorded some strings there. And what was the desk in there? What make was that desk?
It was an AMEC, which was a new AMEC British, you know, AMEC desk. And they built it on they'd rethought the whole thing. Nick, who managed AMEC, had rethought desks, and it made a good job of it too. It was a really good transformerless
sound
British desk.
It was really. I remember it sounding really, you know, kind of super clean and
clean and powerful.
Clean and powerful, yeah. I really enjoyed that, and we were working with Nick Patrick as well, the engineer.
That's right, yeah.
All coming back to me now.
Yeah.
And
Tina Turner was there.
Tina Turner, come on. That must look good on the old CV. Actually, it didn't mean anything at the time particularly. No, it's only a lady.
Just left Ike, hadn't she?
Yeah.
She was telling us how she walked out on him and run across the road and that sort of thing, you know. And then she was with the Ikettes, she was saying, playing American air bases around Europe and with no money, doing the best she could, you know.
And that's absolutely true. And when the weird thing is, we were on the tube with her doing backing vocals when we did Let's Stay Together a little bit later, and she still had the same two dancers that she'd had during the Proud Mary, kind of chicken in a basket circuit stuff. And she came into the dressing room 10 minutes before we went on live TV and said, Martyn, we're going to get the girls to, in the middle A, we're going to get the girls to come up to you and run their hands up and down your legs. And I'm going, oh, no, love, no. That's not going to happen. No, we don't want any embarrassments. We don't want any unfortunate erections, you know. I didn't say that. Can you imagine that on live television?
I imagine it, Marshall. I can.
Oh my God. Anyway, but that I'm proud to say we did that. And Tina, what a star!
Oh, she was wonderful. What a wonderful woman. And I was just talking about her to a friend of mine recently, and she was saying one of the reasons people loved her so much was she never looked back. You know, she was always looking forward, and she didn't get bitter. She had a terrible time of it with Ike, but her whole spirit was moving forward and forget about that. Let's get on with the new thing.
Yeah.
Total optimism. Even when we met her there at the lowest point, I think we must have met.
Yeah, pretty much.
She was still bright. She was still funny. She was laughing. She did all those things in one take. You know, I remember. Straight.
Incredible, isn't it? I mean,
no messing.
Tell these youngsters no bloody auto tune, you know. None of that bollocks. But yeah, she was an incredible. Well, it's clear. I'd seen her perform at the venue in Victoria doing her show, and I thought,
Had you?
Yeah, she didn't even have a record contract.
Yeah, that's right.
When we did that BEF album, she didn't have a record contract.
She didn't. That's true.
That's fucking crazy. Anyway, we had some great musicians down for that album.
Yeah.
John McGeoch and
McGeoch was there all the time.
Yeah.
McGeoch was there with the Banshees and the Cure and all that as well. You know, he was part of that circle of people. So, and they all made records in the garden too.
Did you do magazine there? No,
we didn't.
So
I wish we had.
Yeah, I don't know. What other big albums got made there? Do you think? No, ours was an album.
The Depeche Mode made. I can't remember the albums, to be honest, but I remember the Cure made during that Love Cats period. They made all the tracks there. Depeche, so when they changed their look from being boy band to being serious musicians, you know, with the leather.
Dangerous.
That was they made a couple of albums there.
I can never forget the fluffy hair and everything. I could never take them seriously as kind of heroin chic when they were doing the fluffy boy band thing. So, you know, I suppose we all changed, don't we?
Well, you've got a lot of people to move on, haven't you? And they needed to, and they did the right thing, I think. You know, they actually changed it at the right time, because otherwise they would have faded. But they made a good decision there. I think they did just the right thing.
That's a good point, actually, because given the chance, would you have been, if you'd have had the chance to become kind of a stadium rock band, with Ultravox, would you have done that?
Yeah,
you would.
Yeah.
See, we turned that down because it's right. Sorry. We turned that down, the opportunity to do that down, because we didn't want to move away from our fantastic life we were having in London, to be honest, and go on that kind of endless caravan trail of touring and get into that kind of 2-yearly cycle of albums and all that stuff. But I just find it interesting who goes for that and who doesn't. Like Simple Minds, I think their early stuff is incredible.
Oh, I think I agree with that.
But
I think oddly enough, Jim does as well. Yeah, I was speaking.
I mean, when it started turning into stadium rock, I lost interest.
Yeah, it can be a leap too far, but I don't know. There's a moment when you can make it work, but it's very dangerous, and not many people do it properly. So it's one of the bigger challenges is to get into that stage and then do it without compromise, or changing a way that suits the new environment, you know, without being embarrassing.
And a lot of it is about, you know, getting used to a different kind of lifestyle. You know, you and your new wife have got a cattle somewhere in the, you know, it's the Sting effect, we call it.
Well, there's always that, and it removes you from everyday life as well, which is always the danger, isn't it? People, you can tell when you meet. We've all met those guys.
Oh yeah,
and you know that they no longer know what's happening. They know what's happening in their bubble,
in their bubble.
You don't know what's happening anywhere else. And it's very clear, but it's not clear to them, but it's clear to everyone around them who's not in the bubble.
Exactly. Well put. Well put. And the same is true in Westminster, of course, with complete
any elevated life.
Exactly.
Carries that warranty, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by that because you always go, I always look back and go, if we had taken that, we were offered £1 million, for instance, to go and do a month-long tour on the West Coast in America by Coors Beer. And we're not going to do that. It's beneath us. And I'm going, did I really say that? But to be honest, dedicating ourselves to our craft as songwriters and producers in the best studios in London would have been a different thing had we done the touring thing. Yeah. And I'm proud of what we achieved at that point.
Yeah.
And it didn't last, of course. Nothing lasts forever. But, I don't regret it at all. So
no, I think we make decisions, and whether they're right or wrong or not, you live with it. And then you think, well, next time I maybe make a different decision, or if I get another chance,
Yeah.
I think life's like that. Things pass by very quickly.
They do.
And you look back on them. And I hate to see people get bitter or unhappy about what they did. I learned a lot from Tina Turner like this. It's true that, her spirit, her spirit really, I thought, well, she's had about as bad as you can get, in that life, and she's pulled through magnificently. And that's always inspiring, I think. And there are a few people who've done that kind of thing, and not allowed themselves to get twisted and bitter about it. And there are a number of other people. Many other people have become hung up and twisted in some sort of way, and I think that's such a danger. I know I do
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I refuse to be like that because it limits you. You can't move on. You've got to move on.
Phil from the Human League, he's had a lovely life. He's still doing successful touring, not so much on the recording side, but and when we reconnected after like 25 years or wherever it was, and realised how much we loved each other still.
Good.
Yeah, and he'd become kind of a little bit embittered by the fact that he'd never taken that leap of faith to move down to London at the time that we did, for instance. And he'd now become kind of accreted kind of bitterness, which is keeping him from moving. I even said to him at the time, with my place in Venice, I said, it's empty most of the time. Go and stay there. Get a different perspective on things. He said, "Oh no, I don't want to." I said, "Why didn't you ever move back to London?" And he said, "Well, first time I went down to London on my own after the success of the Human League, the first day, I went down. I was walking down King's Road, and nobody was looking at me. There were so many famous people about." He actually said that.
Oh, great.
And I thought, so some people are happier with being a little, a big fish in a little pond, put it bluntly.
Yeah, it is whatever suits you best, I think. I always think of people like L.S. Lowry, the painter, who stayed in Salford all his life, but he produced a wonderful body of work,
That's right.
And if he'd moved to the south of France, he wouldn't have done that.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So
you are your environment, aren't you? When you're creative type.
Yes.
That's why I never wanted to move out of being in contact with the city.
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
We once tried to do an album when we were on Virgin, or we started doing an album at the Manor. You remember the Manor?
Yes, I remember the Manor.
And it literally was a manor house in the middle of the countryside. Go-kart, for people who don't know, go-kart track, swimming pool, ingle-nook fireplace, catering.
Three or four wolfhounds.
Yeah.
Did you see
Wolfhound? Yeah. And I just and you know, we lasted about 4 days.
Yeah.
We tried to record some stuff in the studio, and it was sounding like fucking Barclay James Harvest, you know.
Yeah.
You can't live in a pastoral environment and then make edgy
Produce urban music.
You can't. It didn't work for me anyway.
Yeah.
So what? Anyway, I've got loads to cram in here, so I better crack on. So then you moved to Ireland, and what was that relationship like? Because Ireland were a label, the second favourite label that we had at that time. We would have gone to Ireland. They bid actually against Virgin, but Virgin just had the edge. What was your relationship with Ireland like, and how did that go?
It was all right. I like a lot of the artists on it, you know, Bob Marley and all that.
Yeah, of course.
Because then it was Rasta Central, you know, you went into the canteen and it was complete Rasta world, you know, it was just great. And of course, Roxy had just left. Brian was still on the label, so he was around. And there were people like the Rolling Stones dropping in and so on. So, you know, all that side of it was great. But at that point, the company was having problems, you know, because they'd spent all the money on Bob Marley you know, because it took a long time to get him to work in Britain, really. And Blackwell was determined to do it, blessing, you know, and he did the right thing. He made it work. And there was Robert Palmer, who was doing okay. And the remains of Traffic, but Traffic was sort of falling apart about that time. So it was in the doldrums, in a sense, apart from Marley, the label. So it was difficult. And it was also, I think Chris Blackwell didn't like arty bands. He didn't like Roxy music. He didn't like him.
Why?
So it was it was more, it was surprised me because he seemed to be well into psychedelia and all that with Traffic, you know.
Traffic, by the way.
I do.
And Roxy were a massive influence, of course.
Well, I liked Stevie Winwood because I used to watch Stevie Winwood when he was 17, you know, playing at the Twisted Wheel in Manchester. I used to go down to the all-nighters and watch Spencer Davis band, you know, when he was a young lad playing Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman, you know.
Yeah, great.
Singing it like a lark, you know, it's fantastic singing. So I was well into all that, and then well into Marley as well, you know, because in Manchester we'd been listening to the first dump sort of sounds, you know, coming out of the Ponderosa in Manchester, which was an old
dub was it? Yeah, dub was a big
dub, all built dub.
Yeah, like the dance
sound system, you know, massive speakers and all that. Wonderful. So I was well into it. And that finished really because we just fell foul of Ireland. It didn't work, and we weren't selling enough records to be perfectly honest. But we also didn't feel we were getting the push we needed, you know, from the company at that point.
And what about Eno was involved in the your first album? Is that right?
Yeah. Brian was around. He just left Roxy.
Yeah,
and I met him in the canteen and said, "Do you fancy producing us?" You know, so he said, "I'll come down and have a listen." So he came down with his little tape recorder and recorded a few things, and he said, "Yeah, fine, let's do it." So
right. And he's a nice guy. I think he's.
He's great to work with. Yeah, he's good. And Lily White was on board as well. You know, because he was a young lad. He just survived being a tape op for a few years in Marble Arch Studios and graduated to being a proper engineer and was ambitious, but you know, he was an easygoing guy and he liked what we did.
Yeah,
he made all our first records. We used to sneak in to Marble Arch at the weekends and make records. You know,
fantastic. And in fact, I'm hoping to get Brian onto the podcast. Finally got through to him, and I met him a few times in the past. He's a nice guy. I think he might do it.
Oh, he's good. I mean, he's got a lot of stories, and he was well in with the first wave of British electronica. Really, that's very early days, and well worth talking about. You know, all the interconnections between earlier forms. You know, all the German things that he was involved with very early.
Right. I need to talk to him about that. I'm not really done that much research into pre-Roxy.
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, he's got a lot to say, you know.
Yeah.
Right from that experimental jazz stuff like Weather Reports as well, you know, Joe Zawinul and all that early synthesizer use before it got into rock music and pop music.
I'm very interested in all that as well. In fact, I'm determined to do a special edition of this podcast about the black influence in electronic music as well, because it's really underrepresented, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, people like William Onyewu and stuff like that in Africa as well. And anyway, I'm going to do that. So that's that, and that's where we met, and it was lovely to meet you. Hello. And
it was great to meet you as well.
Thank you.
I'd actually bought the Human League's records before you split up.
Is that right?
Well, yeah, I loved all that stuff, you know, Empire State Game and everything.
Oh, that was a good record, I have to say. We're very happy with that. That was mainly written and recorded in our studio in Sheffield. And, you know, the second album sounded much more like we wanted it to sound. And kind of, the first one was a bit too over-polished, you know, often happens, doesn't it?
But it's good. It was all good stuff. I like the whole lot.
You know. Oh, thanks, mate. Cheers. And yours, you know, the feeling's mutual. So you withdrew from the music scene in 1985, it says here. You went into underground music. What the hell does that mean? Oh, no, I wrote. That's my idea. Sorry. And graphic design.
Yeah, well, it was a point for me where I didn't like the music scene at all in Britain. You know, I just thought it got very boring.
It had.
And it was all samplers had come into play. I think that had something to do with it.
I think so.
And everything was sampled, you know. Everything had to be sampled and had that sort of horrible, tizzy, digital sound that I really didn't.
No, I don't like.
Didn't feel
it. Well, no.
So I thought, this is not me. You know, I'm not into white soul. I'm not into all that stuff. Yeah, you know, my version of the music I want to make. I'm not saying anything's bad. You know, it's just that sometimes you just don't fit with something. You know, and I'd hear records and I think the hit records, they're good records, but I don't see myself in there at all. So I have to withdraw for a bit. Otherwise, I'm going to look stupid, you know. So, and you're on the verge of looking. I mean, the whole definition of a rock star is somebody who's on the verge of looking stupid all the time.
Yeah, I know, but
pop, you know, that's what it's all about. You're teetering on the edge. It's a balancing act, isn't it? And I just thought, I'm not going to fall off the perch. I'm going to jump off, you know. So that was it.
Dignified approach, I think.
So
how did you make your money at that point then?
Well, just by sheer coincidence, I did a friend of mine asked me to do an image for the cover of a design annual, awards annual.
D&AD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the phone didn't stop ringing after that. So I had another existence. There was nothing to do with John Foxx, you know, it was the old Dennis Leigh thing, because I didn't bring that name into it at all.
Right. Now, what we've got to do then is we've got to do this exhibition, I think. Because I'll tell you why. I haven't seen a lot of your graphic work, but I'm sure it must be excellent. And you've done a lot of covers and stuff. And I'm a big fan of poster art and muralism and but in particular, obviously I love album art and stuff like that. But the when you know, it's when art meets commerce, I'm fascinated with.
Yeah.
You know, what makes a great, I don't know, paperback book cover, for instance, fascinates me, or an album cover. What are the secret ingredients? It's like a code, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm massive friends with Malcolm Garrett, who you must know.
Oh, I know Malcolm very well. Yeah. Well, he did mathematics.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
He's coming on the podcast as well with Alex McDowell, who is a very famous production designer in Hollywood. Anyway, that's coming up. Yeah. But Malcolm's great, and we need to expose you to the public again in a way that's suitable for what I'm going to talk about now, which is, this is so slick, it's unbelievable. Like your love of ambient music and, you know, Cathedral Oceans, which I love, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I remember thinking when you brought that out, I thought, we're kind of running parallel paths because, I formed Illustrious and
Yes.
I did a load of ambient stuff with Vince Clarke and, it seems like we're artistically driven by similar engines, and I've always felt an empathy, not just because you're a good Northern lad and, you're an artist, but just there's a certain something going on there that's very similar.
Yeah, it is.
And so let's have a look. So when you started on the kind of ambient music tip, as it were, how did you find it fulfilling? I mean, obviously these things aren't necessarily designed for maximum sales. That's not the point. The point is, how did that fit into what you were doing, and it made you feel like you were back in the music industry, but on your terms, I suppose. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's exactly right, because I think there are things that any artist might be interested in that don't always fit with the image they have made. It's like being on Coronation Street. You get typecast as Ina Sharples or something, or whatever, and then people find it a little difficult to take you in another role. But you don't just want to be on Coronation Street all your life, So you move off.
Well, they do it. Yeah, they've been on for decades. My mate was on Coronation Street, and he was gutted when he was dropped. He was Tricky Trev, was he?
Yeah. I've got a friend who was the electrician who just came in the background all the time. He did it for years.
Nice when you can get it.
It's a great thing.
No, but he sees some people to have the same role forever. It's a bit like I think it's a bit like, kind of people in show business who have the same haircut forever and ever, or they have the same wig. It's amazing. I would say that because I'm bald as a coot now. But
so there are things you can move off into that interests you, and to me, it seemed like a natural progression. I didn't realize that it seemed strange to go into very calm music after doing very sort of agitated music, if you like, or very, very cold music. To go into something much warmer and more enveloping, really.
Sure.
But it's also that background of that kind of psychedelic era. There was an edge of that kind of music.
And prog rock and stuff.
Yeah. And there's an edge of that fades off into that sort of environment. It's where Eno's at as well. Brian's done the same sort of thing, where, he's in Roxy, and then you realise that there are lots of other connections there. And there are many of us, and you included, who are the same. You branch out into these things that seem entirely natural to you.
I mean, I've become more fascinated with. Initially, it was more like ambient music and mood,
Yes.
But because a lot of the kind of commercial commissions that I've got, and artistic commissions I've got, a lot of them have included oral history, for instance.
Yeah.
And so I became fascinated with, my current fascination has been for a few years now, is narrative. I mean, all we're doing is building a futuristic form of narrative.
Yeah.
Now using different technological tools.
Yeah.
And so my current thing and future thing coming up next is I'm working with a really interesting immersive theatre company that's based in Venice, funnily enough, by coincidence. And they were asked by the city council to take over this I think 38-room palace and create a narrative. I mean, a paid-for experience that instead of you getting guided around the palace to the different rooms and have actors acting around you, each room has its own story on the same timeline. So you can take a free movement. It's like real world gaming.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Historically, and I'm going to be creating, obviously, some compositional stuff, but immersion as well. I mean, we use a 3D sound system to create a sense of like an alternate dream-like reality. You know?
Yeah, wonderful. There are several people. Who are doing similar things in England, aren't there, as well?
Oh, yeah, there's loads. These came from England. They've already done, it's a burgeoning scene. You know, this punch
theatre.
punch drunk, yeah.
Punch, yeah.
Yeah, they do
ways to take over buildings and make separate scenes in each room.
They were the pioneers of the whole scene. And what's the other one called? Miu Bum Bum something. Anyway, I can't remember. There's a few of them. Loads of them did like things in like railway arches and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm fascinated with this because my big desire, having worked 20 years in this world of immersion, is to get away from the digital. Yeah. Yeah. To get into the real world again. Because I think people are so. If you think about the average job that people have, not talking about COVID now, even before COVID, you know, the average job literally entails sitting in front of a computer all day. That's it. Yeah. My friend's got one of the biggest architectural practices in London, Richard Rogers and Stirk Harbour, they're called. Rogers Stirk Harbour. I went to his office and they've got like one floor of the, what's it called, the walkie-talkie building. And it's the size of a football field. Yeah. And it must have 400 people just looking at screens. And I don't think that's a healthy way to be. No, I'm quite glad about the corollary of the COVID thing is people realising they can work just as easily from home.
Yeah, it's made everyone rethink everything, hasn't it, I think. And in some way, I mean, it's been disastrous in many ways. But out of when the cards are up in the air like this, there come some good things out of it.
I think so. I think change is good.
And I think it's made people realise a lot of things about how they work and live, too.
Sure. Which is fascinating. And it's having an enormous economic impact in London, in particular, because a lot of people are going. Why am I spending 2 hours commuting into Canary Wharf or whatever it is? Exactly. And 2 hours at night, what kind of life is that? And B, I no longer, if I'm working at home, I no longer have to be on a fast commuter route or sit in my car all the time. I can actually work from home. I can have a nice house, a fifth of the cost of central London, you know. So anyway, there's a lot of there are a lot of things at play at the moment, and I find it.
Yes, the other thing, Martyn, that's interested me too, and I'm sure it's part of your motivation, is I felt, and I'm sure you did as well, that classical music had got very insular. New composers, there was no room, you know, you couldn't get an orchestra to play your work because everyone was stuck in this repertoire of things that they knew and they expected, you know, Bach. And wonderful as it is, it had got kind of fixed in a strange way and wasn't allowing new things to come in. All the invention went into pop music and popular music. And it fascinated me how the classical world has ignored the recording studio as a device for composition.
Interesting.
And if a new generation of people wanted to be composers in the classical sense, got involved in recording studios and new technologies, we would have some fantastic music. We will be world leaders again in music. Well, it's not happening. It's not. It's beginning to be. It's beginning.
It's interesting. I can tell you something that I think is really interesting. There is in the cohort of my son and my daughter, there is a massive movement away from pop music as we know it.
Yes, very interesting.
Into a love of incidental music and soundtrack music.
Yeah.
It's been formalized. It's not like it's some kind of hip thing. Is people just it's a natural consequence of the rabbit holes you go down online, I think. People are finding beautiful pieces of music, and they don't care if it's got vocals on top or not. And so there's no weight anymore. Provenance has no weight. Age has no weight. It's all just in the idea sphere, right? So the other factor at play here, which is really interesting, is, for instance, my son composes fully epic-sounding orchestral pieces on his laptop in the bedroom. And he's done loads of installations for me. People are mind-bending. We are mind-bent by it. We were looking into potentially him doing an MA in composition, to get some kind of formal training under his belt. There are now some universities and music colleges that are offering MAs where you don't have to actually read or write music. To be able to, it's regarded as an equivalent skill to be able to arrange using Logic Pro or Pro Tools, and also to be able to having the skill of manipulating big sample libraries, of which there are millions now. Spitfire's in the same building as this. Spitfire libraries are the best in the world, I think. You can literally make a realistic, even top composers are now making realistic sounding full-scale orchestral music using sample libraries now. And so, but this stuff on an entry level is being used by students now, and people who just do it at home as a hobby. So I think we're entering into a new phase now where our kind of approach that we would have liked to have access to now has more tools that are available to make what we want. And I think in the future, I mean, they'll never, there's nothing like the thrill of a live orchestra. But this kind of hybridization, this hybridization of electronics and orchestra fascinates me.
Yeah.
And I've done a bunch of stuff with it. I did an enormous 3D sound gig indoors at the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg with Adrian Utley and Will Gregory.
Oh, yeah.
Adrian Utley from Portishead.
Yeah, I know.
And their Moog ensemble.
Yeah.
And we did it all in 3D, and people didn't know what to expect. And we did a world premiere commission as well and all that stuff, including some friends of mine who do things like gong baths and resonant performances on a grand scale.
Yeah.
And I think that's the future. So you're taking the natural world sounds, you're taking found sound, the sounds of nature. I've done an interview with Chris Watson as well, who's a fantastic dude, obviously, world's leading real world sound recordist. Synthesizers, mutated sound, tape manipulation, orchestras, electric bands. This is the future, I think.
Yeah, I think so. No, I agree, Martyn. I think you're on the right trail there. It's also the other side of it. The personal side is trying to make music you want to hear yourself. No, but you think, I really want to hear something that does this to me, whatever you want. And then you look around and you realize no one's doing it. So you have to make your own. You have to do it yourself. And that's a big motivator, isn't it? It is with me. When I can't find something I want, I have to make it. You have no choice.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting to the end now. I'm sorry it's taking so long, this, but it's flown by, to be honest. So, first of all, tell me what you got coming up next. Give us a plug.
Oh, well, I'm doing an album of piano music of mine.
Right.
Just on a grand piano, very simple stuff. And also I've got Harold Budd, who very sadly died recently.
Oh, yeah. One of my favourites.
Yeah, he's. I learned so much from Harold. I can't say. I just wouldn't be doing some of the things I do now if it weren't for his influence. I've still got lots of takes and parts and things that he's sent me over the years, and things that we worked on together, recorded together, that I didn't get around to working on for various for the 3 albums we did, So there's at least 2 albums worth of material there. So I've begun to work on that.
That's
and some of Ruben Garcia's as well. There's some texts with Ruben that I've still got. They used to send me parts, and then I'd work on them, and then I just work on the first 5 or 6, and just as they came, and then I often got 10 or 12 parts, So,
wow.
So there's all that to come, and then there's an album with Benj and the Maths, and I've just finished. I've got 15 songs to work through now with Hannah and Benj and Rob Simon as well.
Fantastic. So, oh my God. I'm so, all the people I love and the people who I admire are still creating amazing stuff. There is no exception. Because we're all motivated to do stuff because we love it, not because,
exactly.
Who knows what sells anymore? I've no idea. I spend all my time moaning at Spotify,
But still, I think Spotify's great though, don't you?
Because, as a research tool, great.
I love that way of assembling playlists and that kind of thing. I think it's really interesting what people can do there.
It is. Okay, the fun bit. Right, well, I always do this kind of smash hits thing, where I ask people their favourite X. And I don't prepare people in advance because I think it's best to have a spontaneous response. So who's your favourite? These are all it could be one of your favourites, right? So it doesn't have to be the definitive. So favourite artist, visual or conceptual?
Visual, because, well, Leonardo da Vinci, I know it's hackneyed to say that now, but when I was a lad, it wasn't a very common choice, and I've liked Leonardo since I was a child. And there are 2. There's also Praxiteles, the Greek sculptor. Who I saw some of his work, or it's attributed to him. It may not be his work, in fact. But they're all those kind of very classical artists are what I love deeply. And Leonardo gets deeper and deeper all the time.
Amazing.
The more stories that you learn of his life and how he understood things in a certain way. He's a great touchstone because, he was pre-technology, and he understood the world by looking at it very carefully and understanding it in a very interesting, sensual, erotic, intellectual way. And he's the link for me. And, I think there's something erotic about understanding.
Oh yeah.
You embrace the world.
Yeah.
You love it. You embrace it with your whole being. And that wholeness of understanding the world is present in great art. And when you come across it, you instinctively understand that someone's embraced the world properly and manifested it in a piece somehow.
Sure, that was very well put. You need to be on the telly. You should do it. You should do like a. Well, I'm going to insist that you start whatever lecture I get you in to do for my students with something about Leonardo, because that was beautifully put. And I've captured it forever. Your favourite film?
Last Year in Marienbad. Always and forever.
Okay.
And Local Hero. I have to put that one in as well, because that's kind of the opposite end of the world.
Yeah.
That I love. Local Hero. I have to watch it. I watch it every year. And I watch Last Year in Marienbad every year. Or more sometimes. That's real. Marienbad's so mysterious. You can never get to the end of it. You look in the shadows and there are things going on that you didn't notice,
Right, I love that.
It's a beautifully shot film.
Yeah.
Wonderful, full cinematic beauty. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And Local Hero is just the most engaging world that I'd like to be a part of. I'd love to be in the pub with those guys. I'd love to be swimming in the cabin with that gorgeous woman.
Yeah.
I'd love to dancing on the beach. I'd love to be, I'd love Burt Lancaster to come down and have a cup of tea. It's the marvelous.
Great, thank you. TV, old or new, didn't really matter.
TV, yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Quatermass.
Oh, now that had a big influence on me when I was growing up.
Yeah,
scared me to death.
Well, it did. Me too. Yeah, it got to places. I remember when the last episodes were playing, the streets were deserted, the pubs were empty. It was a national.
Yeah,
it really took over Britain.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It was terrifying because it was set in something that looked familiar to me anyway, coming from Sheffield. I mean, all those kind of industrial architecture and
yes, exactly.
I loved all that. Okay, book.
Well, many books. What I reread a lot is Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow, just because it's so beautifully written. And another one is Any Human Heart, William Boyd, which is almost equally well written, I have to say. But
oh my God, I'm going to have to read these then.
They're two great books, and I love books that you come back to and read again. I've got more, of course, but those two are what spring to mind immediately.
Well, they act as a mirror to yourself. It's like a stock taking, isn't it? So
that's exactly right. Because as you get older, you reread it, and it's like reading another book because you've learned a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see in that book the things that you missed the first time.
Exactly.
You ought to have taken notice of.
Well, if you didn't know what they meant or you didn't understand the significance, then there's no reason why you should. That's the genius of great books, isn't it? Because, they could be prescribed for you to read in a fourth form English class.
Yeah.
And you still understand them. Like George Orwell's the classic.
Yes.
I mean, that there is nobody who has ever been able to connect in such a significant way with such depth.
Yeah.
To all generations, I think.
Yeah, true.
And unfortunately, we didn't want 1984 to be an instruction manual, but there you go.
It turned out to be one.
Yeah, it turned out to be one.
The road to Wigan Piers are blind.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I read that. I read an account of Wigan in that time because, Chorley is the next town to that. So it's the same kind of town, really. And I'm back in my childhood. I understand what it is, what he's talking about. The miners and all that, and the dad going off to the pits.
Yeah. A lot of people, when I ask them this question, they say down and out in London and Paris.
Yes.
Comes up quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a wonderful one too.
Yeah. Okay. What's your own? Which other musical writer or composer is your favourite? One of them.
Whoa. Big one. I was making a list of this, and I couldn't get. I never got to the end of it really. I think Elgar. I've got to say, I think Nimrod.
It's an amazing piece of music.
It's stunning. Because exactly. It's one. If someone said, "What do you want to listen to now?" Most of the time, I'd say, "Oh, well, give me a blast of Nimrod,"
Yeah.
And I always feel the same when I hear it. You feel nostalgic for something you don't know.
Yeah. It's endlessly nostalgic. Yeah. I have a similar relationship with Henry Purcell, actually. And there's a song that he wrote for Dido and Aeneas.
Aeneas, yeah.
And what's it called? When I'm Laid in Earth.
Yes.
Oh, God. I'm just in floods of tears. I sometimes come into the studio if I'm in that kind of feeling sorry for myself mood, and I put it on, and I go, it's like therapy. Yeah. I'm out, I'm gone, I'm crying. Yeah. That's it.
There are pieces of music that get that. I mean, the great thing about music, isn't it, that it bypasses your intellect and gets you right in the heart straight away.
What little intellect you have.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it now. I mean, that's a wonderful thing.
It's a bit late.
It stands in the way. It goes straight in.
And yeah, exactly. And it's the amygdala, isn't it? It goes straight in your ancient brain. Your own song or piece of music?
Oh, well, I think doing Cathedral Oceans for me was the big one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Because, oh, thank you.
No, it really, really is. And go and listen to it, everybody, if you've never heard it. It's what's the word I like to use? It's not transcendental. It's some. I'll come back to it in a minute. Carry on. Sorry.
No, thanks. I mean, I felt really pleased because I got to something that I wanted to manifest, if you like, you know, to get out of me, because I kept hearing this stuff. You know, I'd be sitting there or walking somewhere, and I could just hear this music, and I thought, I've got to get this down somehow. But I didn't know how to do it then. And then I suddenly found a few ways I could make things like it, you know, and I was off. And I think we all do that. There's stuff you want to hear. You can feel what it should sound like.
Yeah.
And you have to get it down and get it made, you know.
I think another point about this is, I don't know if you feel the same ways, it's not about perfection. It's not about, it's nothing to do with that. It's to do with evoking an emotion.
Exactly. Yes.
And you can do that. There are many, many correct answers to that question. Yeah. Even using the same tools for composition. Yeah. So that's what always encourages me. I think, sometimes I go, I've got an idea. And it doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me one jot what the end product is like. Wow. If it evokes the same emotion in me,
yes, then
that's even better, because it's like automatic writing, you know. Yeah. I think it's beautiful. Anyway, and finally, your favourite synth.
Favorite synth? Oh, it's got to be the Odyssey. Yeah,
right.
That's that treacherous little bugger. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah,
I mean, it's a great machine, I must say. I never got. Yeah, I never got into it. I hired one a few times. Yeah. And just it's weird, isn't it? Some synthesizers you feel a natural affinity with. Yeah. And it's different for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I had a mini Moog, as we're supposed to call them, mini Moog. Yeah, I call it. Yeah. And I never got on with it. I loved some of the bass sounds, and I know it can make wonderful sounds because I've heard them on other people's records, but I never felt the same as I did. As soon as I get hold of the Odyssey, it just feels right. You know, I can work with it. It's like my old mate, you know, he would off again, show me something new, and it does.
I still got this. You recognise that? The Roland System 100.
Oh, System 100, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I still got the JP4.
Yeah, great.
That's not mine, actually. It's my friend Peter Fitzpatrick lent it to me.
And you had a great. You started off with a great Korg as well, didn't you?
That's it. There it is.
Yeah, wonderful.
700S.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I still use them. Still use them all the time. They sound great.
You know, they are good. So what was the first synth I heard on stage? Eddie and Sunshine from a band called Gloria Mundi were the first people I heard with a synth through a guitar amp.
Yes, now it's good, actually.
Oh, it was great. I thought, I've got to have one of those. That was it, you know.
Yeah. So that was great. I'm sorry for the interruption in the middle. We'll edit it together and nobody will ever know. I'm getting it away now, am I? Oh, well. But no, it's great, John, to reconnect. And this is another good thing about all these. It's really my stealth mission is to reconnect with everybody in my life who I've admired and loved. And it gives you an excuse, doesn't it? And literally, when have we ever had chance in our lives to have like an hour to just focus on good stuff? You know, it's hard. Even if you're in a pub, there's always distractions.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, or if you're in a studio, you're burning.
It's work, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really been a thing of enormous pleasure for me.
Yeah. Well, me too, Martyn. It's great. All these years later, it's a great pleasure to reconnect immediately with somebody.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it happens, you know. I know we're both kind of affable types, but some people change so much they can't reconnect, you know.
Yeah.
They're on different planets, and fortunately, I've always kept my feet on the floor, despite the vicissitudes of life, we're still here doing it, aren't we? So
Sheffield to Venice, isn't it?
yeah, Sheffield to Venice
And back.
and Chorley.
Yes.
All right, on that bombshell, I'll say goodbye, John,
Right.
or Dennis,
All the best anyway, Martyn.
and I will always know you as John anyway.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye.
A real pleasure.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.